I frantically paced around the bathroom, wanting to rip the weight off my body. And as soon as I looked into the mirror, I saw it. As a 17-year-old girl, I was always insecure about how I looked. I would tell myself constantly that I had to lose weight because no one would want to be friends with someone who looked like me. It slowly became a habit, and every day I would stare at my body and count the calories that I ate, believing that if I kept at my routine, I'd finally be happy. However, one day, when I was at my grandma's house for a family dinner, I needed to use the bathroom, and when I got there, I saw some scales. I was really excited to see the progress I had made, so I stepped on them. But I couldn't believe what I saw. I remember the moment clearly. The numbers rose so high. 214 pounds? I reeled in shock. How did this happen? I couldn't believe it. I worked so hard all the time. How could I have put on more weight? I frantically paced around the bathroom, wanting to rip the weight off my body. And as soon as I looked into the mirror, I saw it. I saw where the extra weight went. It surrounded me, weighing me down like bricks. I pulled up my top and grabbed my stomach. I saw all the worst parts of me. My thighs touching, my belly big and round. It felt like everything I had been doing accounted for nothing. I broke down crying. The toilet caught my eye, and for a moment, I thought about throwing up, but I just couldn't do it. So instead, I decided that for the next week, I wouldn't eat anything. I practically starved myself for 7 days, and in the end, I lost 12 pounds. I felt so proud of myself, but when I told people about it, no one seemed to care. I would even make little hints to my mom by weighing myself in front of her. Every time the scale went down, I would jump around in excitement, but no matter how skinny I got, no one ever congratulated me. They didn't care about how hard I was trying. This only fueled me to work harder, to lose more. My obsession with my body kept getting worse and worse. At first, I was just starving myself, but at some point, it turned into something much worse. I hated myself and hated how I looked. I would write out notes to myself that would make me throw up anything I ate, no matter how little it was. It was weird because while I became so insecure about how I looked, I was also proud of myself for having so much control over what went into my body. My condition got so bad that I started to feel exhausted all the time, and I could barely concentrate in class. I knew what I was doing was bad, but I couldn't stop. I would limit my meals to 1,200 calories a day and work out every night. I made it a rule that I had to walk 10,000 steps every day, and in the course of roughly 2 years, I lost almost 94 pounds. I got down to 117. This was my lowest weight. I thought that I was trying to get better, but instead, my demons were becoming more and more a part of me. My whole life became all about numbers, how much I was eating, how much I was losing, and how many steps I could take to lose more. I would calculate the number of calories gained in the day versus the number of calories lost when I worked out. I became so obsessed that I even had a chart with those numbers and the amount of weight I'd lose. It was the only thing I could focus on, and every time I'd pass a mirror, it would only fuel my desire to get smaller. It felt like someone else had taken control over my body. One day, my mom asked if I wanted to go bikini shopping with her. At first, I was super excited because I had been working so hard on my weight, so I thought for sure she would notice how great I looked. But when I started to try on different bikinis, I got really upset. I hated how everything looked on me. Nothing would fit properly, and I could still see my thighs touching. I started crying in the changing room. It was in that moment that I realized it wasn't my body that was the problem. It was me. I needed professional help. On the way home, I turned to my mom and broke down, telling her everything that I had been doing to my body, like how I had been throwing up my food, to starving myself regularly. We sat there in silence for a while until she grabbed my hand and said we would get through this together. She booked me in to see a doctor for the next day, but that night, I didn't sleep at all. I was so afraid that I made the wrong decision. As we sat in the doctor's office, I got really nervous, but before I could say anything to my mom, a nurse approached us and asked my mom and I to follow her. Was I making a mistake? I thought as we walked into the room. A doctor then came in and started to ask me about my eating habits. I hugged my arms around my body to try to control the ease I felt. The doctor went on to say, "It seems that your daughter is suffering from a condition called bulimia." I sucked in a deep breath as I reeled in the realization at what I had done to my body. The doctor then went on to explain bulimia as a condition that affects someone's eating habits, which causes them to regulate their food intake and vomit up their food. This condition can have lifelong effects both physically and mentally. The doctor scheduled me in for a therapy session and said that it would be a long road to recovery. But the first step is always the hardest. Even though I was afraid, I was determined to get better. Since that day in the doctor's office, it's been a really hard recovery, but over the course of the last 5 years, I've slowly put my weight back on, and I no longer keep track of what I eat. I still struggle from time to time, but thanks to my loving family and therapist, I now see that I am more than how much I weigh, and I deserve to be loved. I just want to say that you are more than what you weigh, and if any of you are going through eating issues like I did, please go speak to a professional or someone you trust. The first step is the hardest, but there is always a way out, and life does get easier.